We have our final and fantastic session of rapid fire fundraising tips with another one of our incredible customers, Chad Leaman, the Director of Innovation at Neil Squire Society. Welcome, Chad. How are you today?
Great, great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I will pass it over to Rob to begin your rapid fire session. Enjoy.
Thank you, Jenna. Hey, Chad, how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. So we've had a long day of amazing sessions here. And are you the last speaker today? I think you are, Chad. You
There we
are
go.
a speaker.
Closing the show. I've caught a few sessions here along the way, so I'm certainly not going to say the best to last, but it's been great to sort of learn for some peers, and hopefully I can share a couple things. Though I have a funny feeling I might be double clicking on some other people's ideas, so some best practices that hopefully I'm emulating. But it's been a great day. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, for the folks that are still on today, which are a lot of you, could you just give Chad a warm welcome in the chat? So Chad is amazing here. We've been working together. I haven't worked directly with you, Chad, but I heard great stories of the work you're doing over there at Neil Squire. And I'm actually very curious about your background, your literal background. You have so many tools
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah, it's
I
like it's yeah, we do work with people with disabilities around assistive technology. Our mission is empowering people through technology. Um, and about 8 years ago, we really started to make a new model to get people with disabilities assistive technology by releasing different designs and projects open source. And so they can be fabricated by the community. So using things like 3D printers and kids using STEM skills to do that, which has led into some of our campaign pieces as well. So this is, some of the tools I may use to build different things and some different samples of different assistive devices that we built through our library and our partners.
love it. I love it. So now that you the audience kind of understands, okay, what is Neil Squire? Can you talk about like what's your role over there at Neil Squire and how did you get into it?
Sure. Yeah, I started been with Neil Squire for over 20 years. So I've been with the organization for a long time. So I've had a lot of opportunity to sort of grow and try a number of roles in it. I started as a university student where I was in computer science and realized that like I'm not the biggest dork in the room. I am never going to be the best programmer. But I really had an affinity for technology and I had the opportunity to work a summer job at Neil Squire teaching basic computer literacy skills. Now you got to remember this is like 2000, 2001, people are using Alta Vista, maybe they're fancy and got a Yahoo email account, but just sort of teaching people with disabilities about what the internet was and how technology kind of helped them further their mission. And it really resonated with me that I can be a dork still, but for social good and have a sort of social impact. So I had the opportunity to take over digital literacy programming when I finished university. And over my career there, I've been a bit of an entrepreneur in the organization. So help get new programs kind of up, running, find people smarter than me to run them and try to raise the money to do that. So for a while, I was very much feeding myself. I get funded for a program, get it up and running, then replace me in the program and move forward. So I'm primarily now sort of fundraising and partnership development, but quite often still like, you get a project funded, try to help get it up and running, and then try to get out of the way so people can do that work.
Wow, I think that's amazing since a lot of the audience today, a lot of the nonprofits today also wear a lot of different hats. And so it sounds like, you really are running programs kind of starting from scratch, getting the funding, building it up, and then kind of moving on to the next thing. So in a sense, you're wearing a lot of different hats all the time and having a lot of different roles, which a lot of organizations today have to really resonate with that. So I'm kind of curious too. In terms of fundraising, so you mentioned that you work with partnerships now, you focus on fundraising. What is there a particular fundraising strategy that has really resonated, really performed really well for Neil Squire in the past 20 years that you experienced it?
Yeah, a lot of our work has traditionally been funded through different sort of government RFP sort of work, which has been really great for us and have some we're in Canada, so some national and provincial support for programs, but it's also been can be incredibly restricting. I won't bore anyone with the joys of government RFP and claim processes, but it can be very onerous. And it's like, oh, we're going to have a half-time person here and half person there. It's like, no, the contract says it's one full-time person. Right. So just you get into some of these sort of quagmires and stuck in some of these government pieces. So we've been able to sort of grow our corporate and foundation support, but individual giving, that amount's almost always been a rounding error for us compared to some of these larger sort of grants. But it's been also allowed us to have the most flexibility and try to start things or fill some gaps and fill pieces in. So that's been an area that we've been working on growing more strategically over the last couple of years. Is, obviously the government fundraising and those metrics are our bread and butter, but really is trying to diversify our revenue sources. Governments change, government priorities change. So trying to make sure we're not quite as exposed to a change in government or whim and leaving the organization kind of out in the wind. So while that's still, I say, our primary customer and revenue source, building those individual sort of giving has given us sort of the flexibility to try new things and really, double down on areas or programs where we see there's opportunities for growth.
Yeah, so it sounds like traditionally the revenue stream really is around kind of these government grants, government contracts. So similar to a lot of organizations where they're very heavily grant funded or foundation funded, and then somehow they make a decision to say, okay, well, we need to go after individual donors. So what was kind of that turning point or the moment where you all decided, okay, we can't just rely on grants, we need to do more individual giving? And I'm also curious, how has that focus and transition been? Is it very different than contracts and grants? Is it not different? What have you all learned?
Yeah, there's, I would say there's, it's a bit of a Venn diagram. There's some parts that are the same and there's some parts that are very exclusive to each other. When we're working a lot in like government grant sort of stuff, it's like, we're going to serve, 1,000 people, 600 are going to get jobs, 200 are going to go back to school. It's very sort of like large metric based pieces where we find where we're working to try to drive individual engagement and giving. It's much more personal giving, right? It's, we'll have those sort of metrics and stuff, but we find the value isn't that we served, 83 people got jobs. Like, here's a story of, Shelly starting her first job, or here's a story of someone after their injury going back to work. So having a more personal sort of touch definitely, I think, engages us more individual sort of piece, where the sort of government piece is the metric. So we try to pair a bit of both, but we're finding that that's really storytelling sort of centric piece moves more the individual side. So usually as people sort of finish the story and we have or through the program and have a good story, we try to do our best to capture that story, have an interview, and then share that on our website. And that can come part of future campaigns, sort of collateral that we do to sort of help move the needle. But it's been a journey for us because that's not, I guess, as much core of what we've been in the past. So sort of getting, building those processes, collecting stories, those people are comfortable sort of sharing it and really focusing those individuals. We've been moving more in that direction in the last few years.
Yeah, so it sounds like traditionally with government contracts, it's really macro focused, these large metrics. While for individual giving, you found more success in going really micro, which where it's about an individual, about their story, the impact that y'all have created, and going really deep into that has really resonated with individual giving. So I really love that. Now, what in terms of engagement, then, like, how do you all kind of see this individual giving engagement? Is it really about kind of just telling a story and then doing fundraising with that, or is there more of a process, or kind of how do you all approach donor engagement when you're growing individual giving program?
Yeah, we've had the opportunity with our Makers program to sort of bring a number of different volunteers or stakeholders in and give them sort of that hands-on experience, which is really sort of, I think, help develop a bit more of the affinity and awareness for our work. So just for the quick pitch, the campaign that we run annually right now, we call Hacking for the Holidays. And the goal is to make toys accessible for kids with disabilities. So you can buy toys that have ports on them, so you can plug in different assistive devices. So you think maybe you have a kid, you can't squeeze the hands on the teddy bear or press the on-off button on the button blower, whatever it may be. So we adapt sort of commercial toys and add that sort of port in. And it's like, less than $5 worth of ports to do that adaptation. But if you buy like the commercial assistive devices, again, we're in Canada. Last year, the Canadian supplier of these things had three toy choices, and they were incredibly expensive. Like a Switch adapted bubble blower was almost $200. So I went to Walmart. I bought basically a pallet of bubble blowers at the end of the season for $3. And then we have these events where people will come in and adapt them. We call them build-a-thons, where people's like, okay, I got 20 bubble blowers. Here's like my IKEA-ish, Lego-ish manual of how to do that adaptation. and people come in and they solder it. So it gives them the opportunity to sort of do some of the work and see how it is. So, I'll run a bunch of events with schools and stuff, that's good, but we've had really great success in engaging some corporations and having their staff have a team building day where they'll first pay me to come in, cover the cost of toys, but then by people sort of seeing the adaptation and how it works and sort of seeing like, wow, I could donate $100 and they could do 10 bubble blowers, whereas that would only buy half a bubble blower if they bought it online. So starting seeing that impact and the hands-on has built that affinity and a bit of that individual and team giving inside organizations. So that's been a real successful path for us, and sort of having people do a little bit of the mission and the work and build that sort of raises a cause, and then sort of transferring into being like giving wealth, not now just their time, but with their wallets and money as well.
Right, right. So I love kind of this idea of helping folks understand and build an affinity towards the organization by showing them that they can actually participate in creating some type of impact and participating in a program. So it's kind of like you're blending in this program area and opportunity, this volunteering essentially with giving as well, so they can make a contribution when they experience it, but also their companies and these teams can experience it. And then you also even bringing in this other aspect of just community, so that donors are not just by themselves, they're actually with other folks they know, whether it's in social groups or as part of a workplace giving type of environment. So really kind of how you blend all these three elements together.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've had a bit of the benefit of both being in the program operations, getting things running and going, and then bring that sort of piece too. So I'm enough in the weeds of enough pieces to kind of see what those bridges are and move apart. And what we found through that, like the first year we ran our hacking for the holidays campaign was this is our third year this year. We set a goal of like doing 500 toys and having 20 build events, and we greatly exceeded that. And what we're finding is we're getting this sort of like repeat customers, right? Like, the first year they did it with their team, and then next year you're like, oh, some of our customer service came, they want to do their customer service team, and it's sort of grown to where like, okay, we want to do like 10 events across the country, one in each region, and set it up. So it both grows both the corporate support and the individual awareness, and it sort of has that similar to that peer-to-peer sort of piece where maybe not on the fundraising doing it, but you have the different teams now, like, well, we're not going to let the accounting team raise more money than us on the customer service at front desk or whatever, right? So sort of internal, sort of like who can do more toys, who can raise more money for this campaign. So by getting involved and sort of building that awareness, sort of spreads, more breadth across organizations.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great approach where you're capturing the competitive aspect of groups, especially in a kind of this employee engagement environment, and then you can really grow and demonstrate results and increase the impact that way. So I find that really interesting. Other part that you mentioned around how you have a lot of experience on the program side. So I think one of the hardest parts of being a fundraiser is that sometimes you just don't know what happens on the impact side or how the programs work. So then you have to kind of talk to your colleagues and kind of figure it out in order to kind of really craft this a cohesive experience, fundraising experience, and opportunity for donors. So I think one of the learnings that I have over here is that, okay, well, if you really want to be successful doing fundraising, then you kind of have to cut across different functions in order to really tease out those opportunities which you have. So that's something I just kind of want to point out for our audience as a great practice to do when it comes to fundraising.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree. I double click on that. At the end of the day, you're really trying to further your mission. So understanding where the sort of rubber hits the road and be able to share those stories can be very powerful.
yeah, so y'all have done hacking for the holidays for a few years now. So I'm kind of curious, what's something that has really worked for kind of this year-end Giving Tuesday campaign? What's something that you learned from in the past that's really demonstrated results that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean that I've talked a little bit already about having the sort of hands-on opportunity to engage being a big bit. The other piece, and the last speaker, Susan, I think her name was double clicking on this too. Really trying to break it down into like, a gift of $35 helps me buy a toy, or a gift of even $5 helps me buy that sort of adaptation. So trying to have that sort of like very concrete, like your dollar lets me do X sort of piece, and how the campaign goal sort of is the sum of those parts. So really trying to break it down. So not just, right, I'm donating $100 and, good luck with the
Yeah.
campaign, but letting them know that, if you donate $50, that's a toy and a Switch, that's one kid that can play. So really try and get those sort of tangible, your dollar has this impact, helps with that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're recommending that for fundraisers, when you're running a campaign, to really tie the dollar to some type of impact that the donor can have. Because at the end of the day, the donor is buying or kind of giving you something. They're saying, okay, here's $100. How are you going to be a good steward with $100? Is it just going to go to some amorphous overhead? Or is it going to some type of impact? Like they just really need to know, okay, how am I going to make a difference? What is $100 going to do? So one of the great ways to do that is just quantifying different donation tiers. And we call them impact tiers, where you can write down on your donation form, okay, $100 helps like 3 people. $200 helps 6 people, and et cetera, et cetera. That way, like donors can really understand, okay, let me choose my impact versus let me try to figure out how much money I want to donate. So it's a very different story.
Yeah, and with our Giving Tuesday campaign this year, we're really planning to do a push of like a very specific ask. So while they have those different donation tiers, to really push can you donate $35 today to buy one more toy? We have this big event coming up at the end of the month. We're going to try to do 500 toys. Help us raise the money for the 500 toys so we can execute this event and reach as many kids as possible. So we really have, throughout the campaign, we'll have different sort of like the overall campaign. Here's a story of a person that's volunteered. There's a story about, be a youth in the STEM program, so the impact it's had. There's a story of a kid with disability or a rehab center has had that. But with the Giving Tuesday, it'll be very much like a direct ask, like help us buy one more toy for one more kid. Here's a story of a kid that benefited last year. So really try to have that impact of what their dollar will do. It'll impact a kid like this one.
Yeah. So for how you're seeing Giving Tuesday then is very much of an ask for your donors to make a contribution. It's less about, okay, here's something that you can engage in on the program side. You kind of do that beforehand, before the whole kind of Giving Tuesday campaign. Is that right?
Yeah, we have the way we've just the calendar's worked out for us well this year. We have a number of these build-a-thon events where we're adapting. We're doing 80 of them over the campaign, but our really big one is a week after Giving Tuesday. So really try to, leverage those people that maybe came, they adapted something along the way, that sort of follow up, like we're gonna have this bigger event. You can come to this bigger event, it's free to come, but if you do come, think about, paying for that toy to get involved. So trying to really leverage those contacts we made through it that maybe saw, maybe didn't donate that time, or maybe even did, having that sort of impact of the really big event coming ahead because they've sort of walked a mile in the shoes, they've done that adaptation, they've done that work, and they know that this big event will really help us move the needle. So try to continue to stay engaged and contribute.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of fundraising actually happens before you make an ask. It happens throughout the year where you have different projects, different programs, different opportunities for folks to get involved, to be a part of a build-a-thon, hackathon. And then when it comes to towards the year end, all the work and all the nurturing and all the engagement, it's an opportunity to actually make an ask on Giving Tuesday and have that flow into year end.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of times like organizations kind of think about, okay, fundraising is something I just need to do right now. And then forget that there's a lot of work beforehand that goes into nurturing the donor. So I think what you mentioned is a great reminder of that.
Yeah, definitely.
So in terms of your end then, do you see Giving Tuesday as like a discrete or siloed fundraising campaign, or is it tied into a broader year-end strategy?
Yeah, I see it as tied into our broader year-end strategy. Usually Giving Tuesday aligns really closely with another day that's widely recognized in the disability community, which is the UN Day of Persons with Disabilities with a number of pieces. This year it falls like bang on December 3rd. So that works out really great. So, usually there's some other work and other opportunities we can engage some media around that. But yeah, we really see, we run our campaign for 90 days of these build-a-thons and hackathons, but a lot of the sort of, the intensity of the work really picks up in December. So Giving Tuesday is really sort of the kickoff to much more of that sort of dollar movement year-end strategy sort of piece.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we highly recommend folks to use Giving Tuesday as the kind of kickoff, and I think it's wonderful that it also lines up with something really important in the community that you serve. So, Jeff, so we've gone through so many things today, and I think we've been chatting for almost 20 minutes. So, kind of curious if folks want to learn more about you, Chad, or Neil Squire, where should they go to?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the work that I've talked about here today has been around our Makers Making Change program. So let me see if I'm clever enough to not butcher the, there I go, got the URL and the piece. So that's where we have our campaign piece where we're sort of, sharing some stories, opportunities where both people can request adapted toys, all the toys that we build for this go for free to families or people with disabilities. And then people can also donate through that. So that's where it's a great spot to sort of follow along. Otherwise, I'm on all your social medias. I'm at Chad Leaman. I'm old enough where I got my name handle early on in all these sort of platforms. If I was going to plug anyone else in terms of other opportunities to learn or to grow, I used to help run. I still volunteer a bit with it used to be called Net Tuesday. It's now Net Squared. Let's run our Tech Scoop. That's really focused on helping nonprofits learn technology skills. They run free monthly webinars and a lot of community meetups too. So today's been great and a lot of sharing, but a lot of the skills I've learned along the way has been from these sort of community groups. And a big reason why I started doing that was actually I want to learn from smart people. So you ask them to come speak and then you can steal all their ideas. So that's another great opportunity to learn from your sort of peers is, if you run a little Tech for Good meetup, I've gone way more out of it than I put in. And I truly believe that's a lot of things that, givers get. And, by sort of sharing forward, you're going to learn more. And today's been another example of that. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to share 20 minutes, and I've certainly learned a lot of pieces I can take forward and help improve our practices. So thank you.
For sure. Yeah, and that's where TechSoup has a special place as well for CauseVox. I remember 14 years ago. And so, Chad, when I heard about you being Squire for 20 years, I'm like, oh wow, I thought I had the longest job in the world, but you actually do. But when I first launched CauseVox 14 years ago, it was at one of the Tech for Good Net Squared events. So
there you go, full circle.
That's right. So, yeah, that's right. I mean, so for our audience today, check out TechSoup. We have a lot of free, great resources, discounted software. CauseVox, we're also on TechSoup as well, so you can get a great discount for using, if you want to use CauseVox through them. And they also have a lot of meetups too. So free fundraising education, nonprofit education, all that stuff. So check them out. So that's a great recommendation, Chad. Really appreciate it. But Chad, thanks so much for the time here. We appreciate you being a customer of CauseVox, as well as sharing some great tips over here around hacking for good, about integrating programs with fundraising, as well as making sure that you're engaging folks in the year end and Giving Tuesday. So thanks so much for your time, Chad.
Thank you for having me. You guys take care.
All right, thank you.